Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champions Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. Every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, normally Mitra Jordan and Raffael Boccamazzo, aka Dr. B, talk about mental health and how gaming affects us. And if you hear this live in the chat, you can leave a question that I, Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show. We're going to be talking about screen time today, which is going to be an interesting topic, but we're also joined by a special guest, Dr. Rachel Cowart.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be back. It has been a minute.
It has been. It's probably been like several of them actually.
Many minutes.
Many
minutes.
Yes.
For folks who don't know who you are, though, who are you for those fine folks who may not know?
Yes, I am Dr. Rachel Cowart. I'm the research director over at Take This. I work with the lovely Dr. B, and I've been studying and researching games and the way it impacts us physically, socially, and psychologically for, I want to say, pushing 15 years.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. We've I've been reading Dr. Cowart's stuff for a while.
15 years?
I had a total fanboy moment when we met. It was
really?
It was oh my god, totally. There's a whole story. I'll tell you later. But yeah, no, there's a whole thing. But I'm so glad
who's this psychological Jesus over here?
I am your own personal Jesus. The whitewashed version. I'm Dr. Raffael Boccamazzo, Dr. B for the long Italian name reasons. Nobody wants to deal with all the consonants. And I'm the clinical director over at Take This. I'm a clinical psychologist in Washington State. And an expert on the applied use of mental health games in mental health, especially things like Dungeons and Dragons, TTRPGs, that sort of thing. Make sure to go follow TakeThis.org for all of the wonderful free resources we put out, and you can read a lot of Dr. Cowart's work over there as well.
Yeah.
So yes, you're welcome, chat. Your Depeche Mode is now in your head. What's up?
I found out Depeche Mode's gonna be playing near me soon. I was like, Am I gonna go to that? Am I gonna go to that? Anywho.
Yeah, you should.
But okay, so we are talking about screen time today because we have, as a society, we have been talking about screen time for decades.
Yes.
In various formats. You know, when television, aka the boob tube, aka forgive the ableist slur in this case, the idiot box. We have talked about electronics and technology and screens in this scourge. They are the downfall of society kind of context. And even as our understanding has progressed about the actual science behind these things, the panic still exists. And so that's why we're talking about this. And I bet Dr. Cowart has a lot of things to say about that.
It's almost like the topic was appropriate for who we had on.
Almost. Yeah. No, I mean, the panic is real, and we still see headlines. I just went on a Twitter tirade in the last week about something similar with these headlines about screen time being this amorphous enemy against all of society that's going to bring the collapse of us all.
I'm just thinking, being a geriatric millennial, I wonder how many societal collapses have I been threatened to have lived through at this point, and how many of them have been technology based? Let's see. Well, I mean, or games based. There's Dungeons and Dragons, there's video games, there's movies, there's TV, there's all sorts of stuff.
I mean, I would say all of these ends of demises have been technology based. I mean,
yeah.
There's a great Witcher quote I could,
Oh God, which one?
Us. We have to.
I've lived through a whole dark age and 3 supposed end of days, and it's all horseshit.
Yes. I'll be honest. I was gonna be disappointed if we didn't get one Witcher quote. So
I mean, I am here.
You gotta bring your brand.
I do.
I mean, fix things
true.
so we can do this properly.
There we go. I was a little disappointed it wasn't.
Okay, I'll put my hair up just for you. But okay, so first of all, we're talking about moral panic. Dr. Cowart, what is moral panic?
Moral panic is the idea that we want, well, it's based on the function that we have as humans of being lazy thinkers, and we want easy solutions to complex problems. So when something bad happens, rather than taking the time to think about the many reasons why something bad might be happening, we immediately panic based on moral, the children grounds, and say it must be that one thing over there that's causing all these issues. And it tends to be technology based, although we have seen it about like Dungeons and Dragons, right? We've seen moral panics around things that aren't necessarily technological advances, but they tend to be bubble up around technological advances.
Well, and okay, so what's fascinating to me about moral panics is that they have this predictable arc and these predictable themes, and one of the some of them are even contradictory. One of those contradictory things being that the scourge is both obvious and you definitely need experts to explain it. And that it's corrupted, it is taking away the innocence of our youth. There's always robbed innocence in this. And for those who are actually interested in some of this, I'm talking about Stanley Cohen's work, who coined the book Moral Panic in the 70s. It's a whole thing. But how do we see that with screens these days?
Oh my gosh. How do we not see a screen?
How much time do you got?
Not enough. Not only do we see it with this, like I said, amorphous screen time, you see it in relation to just what people just call screen time. We also see it individually with all the various forms of screens that we have. There's panic about social media. There's panic about games. There's panic about our phones. We see it everywhere, all the time, constantly. And the thing is, like you mentioned earlier, we have a lot of research now. We understand that there's a nuanced discussion to have about what's good and what's bad and the way that we use these different tools at hand. But moral panic kind of broad strokes overlooks any of the positives that we know come from all of these things. Like, it is really great that I have a phone with me because I get lost a lot. I have no sense of direction. Like, excellent. Good. I'm glad I have a phone. Or games, bring people together. And we've seen lots of research about how it reduces loneliness and increases social connection and learning and whatever, all these things. But then, it must be the bane of society when a violent act happens, for instance, which is typically when games come up, even though we know games aren't related to real world violence in any way.
Wait. Say that part again.
People tend to moral panic about games when something violent happens, even
though
I
hadn't noticed.
Yes. We have 50 years of research that has found no direct link between games, playing any kind of video game of any amount of time, whatever, and violent crime in the offline world. I wanted to say real world, but I hate that. In the offline world. But, it seems to kind of fit the pigeonhole of just like, I need something to blame, and I'm not going to talk about personality or exposure to violence or peer delinquency or parental involvement or just
the ubiquity of video games.
Right. The obvious argument of like, wait a minute, 3 billion people play games.
Did you know that there is a link between violent behavior and breathing? Because I've noticed, Dr.
These people
Cowart,
get into fights, they're breathing.
They're all breathing. I have a colleague who constantly says, wearing shoes.
That's why people with sandals are always so peaceful.
I don't want to stand in a line for Jordans.
Right. You want to get violent.
Well, see, like the thing is, like I remember in high school, like when I was in high school, the whole GTA thing was going on, where it's just like, oh, this game is going to corrupt an entire generation, everything like that. Like my mom even
Yeah.
came into my room one day when I was playing Vice City, and she was like, so I just found out I shouldn't have gotten you that game. And I was like, and the thing is though, I was like 14 or 15 or something. I was like, tell you what, sit down, I'm gonna show you this game and why it's fine. And so she sat down with me and I showed her all the game. I even showed her stuff that I'm like, I know this is not great. I just don't do that part of the game. Like you don't have to go do this, so I don't. But I do remember that there was one news article where like some kid around my age at the time like stole his dad's car, got chased by the police, pulled a guy out of another car, which I'm like, he's like 14. How did he pull a dude out of a car? Got in that one, took off, like, and I think he did that like with 3 cars or something like that. And when they arrest him, they're like, why'd you do it? He's like, because I play GTA. And like everyone hopped onto that. But my favorite part about that story is the parents of that kid tried to sue Rockstar North because of that, and the judge went, no.
Yeah.
Well, we actually saw some similar stuff in the 80s and early 90s, I believe, with Dungeons and Dragons as well. People tried that, and it's just these same cycles over and over and over again. It's part of the reason Stanley Cohen hypothesized what he did about the way moral panics work. But just to talk about one of the things that Dr. Cohort mentioned, I love this set of statistics to bring this to people, and I just re-looked it up yesterday, that since between 2000 and 2019, in total numbers in the United States, violent crime is down 14.5%. Per capita, once we include population growth, violent crime is down 27.4% from 2000 to 2019. Worldwide video game sales in that same time period went from $8 billion to 120.
Yeah. And that's a great point to bring up. I have a graph that I use in a lot of my presentations that exactly shows that. And it's like, so at face value, if that was a link, they would both be exponentially increasing.
Right. I mean, causes, that's a wonky thing. I mean, and we've had you on before talking about some of the methodological flaws in a lot of game studies that due to ethics, we can't just give kids knives and see if they stab each other.
We cannot.
So we got to come up with things like hot sauce.
Oh gosh.
The hot sauce paradigm. Oh,
I don't know this one.
So
I'm not stealing your thunder on this.
We're getting a little tangential, but in the work that's looked at the relationship between violent video games and violence or aggression, they have to come up with different methods to try and show some kind of direct link. So one of the very common methods, and this is real, I'll preface it with this is real, and there are published studies on it. It might be Frank's. I can't tell you the brand.
Lord of the chat.
But we run into trademark issues at that point.
They bring somebody into a laboratory or university, and you do a word completion task, which, so for instance, you see KI blank blank, and you put in whatever first word that comes to mind, very free association. You put kiss. Okay. Then you play 15 minutes of Vice City, and then you come back out and you do another word completion task, and then you put kill. That's a measure of aggression. Another one would be you come in, you say, hey, there's this guy in the next room who hates hot sauce, like hates it. I have this big gallon of Frank's. Can we get sponsored by Frank's hot sauce? Big gallon of Frank's.
I would love that.
No. On this show, Sriracha.
How much do you want to make that person in the other room that you don't know, but you know hates hot sauce have? And you're like, well, none, because I'm not a horrible person. Okay. Then you play 15 minutes of GTA and you come back and you're like, you know what? I'm going to give him a lot of hot sauce. I just feel so enraged from that. I'm going to give him hot sauce. And if you determine if there's any difference in how much hot sauce you give the person from before and after, they consider that a mark of increased aggression. And it has been in multiple published studies.
So many.
As evidence of violent video games leading to increased aggression.
None of these studies are longitudinal, looking at real world long-term violent behavior. It's short-term aggression, but even as a measure of short-term aggression, I would argue that the word completion task has at least slightly more validity because it's about like cognition.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems so odd.
Meanwhile, I'm over here going, that would be hilarious to give my best friend some additional hot sauce. That would be funny.
I will say, now knowing that hot sauce, like, I am worse off today knowing that. Like that is a real thing thing that happened in people. Wow. Okay. Anyway,
I'll be honest though, a lot of research, it's a real thing that's happened, but
Yeah.
most of the researchers in the field are aware that that is not a good thing.
It's
Yeah.
It's good.
So
it's a small group of people.
Okay. I can deal with that one.
Kind of away from this moral panic idea, because I mean that's been well established over the millennia that new technology such as writing brings about moral panic, or the printing press.
It was really writing.
Yeah.
Socrates was like super pissed about it.
Yeah.
He was like, it's going to cause people to forget things. What are we doing?
Yeah, he's like, there's no reason to remember anything anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
It weakens the memory of the youths, I believe.
Yeah.
See, it's all about the youths.
Yeah, the youths of Athens. But the kind of coming into this idea of screen time as a unified measure of things, because multiple pediatric associations for like 20 years have put out recommendations on screen time limits for people. And I think the prevailing one for a couple decades was 2 hours a day of screen time.
Yeah.
2 hours a day?
2 hours a day is the recommended limit above, I think, the age of 2. I'm trying to remember which pediatrics association that was about 10 years ago. But that was just as a unified whole. They said no more than 2 hours a day of screen time.
The problem with that.
Okay, yeah, no, getting my water now.
Is several things. Screen time is not all equal. There's a huge difference, and like my daughter has 2 hours of screen time at school at this point, and she's in grade 2. She's in grade 2. She's here. She's like, Mom, I'm not in grade 1. She's in grade 2. So not all screen time is created equal. So when you create a 2 hour limit, you're really limiting yourself, and you're grossly kind of blurring the lines of like what the point of screens are and how screens can be tools for a variety of things. But the thing is also, the amount of times I've been asked for what's the number? What's the number? What's the magic number? How long can I always disappoint and say there is no magic number, but people desperately want that number, so I understand that some of these agencies, even though it's like misguided for sure, there's probably a lot of pressure to be like, what is the number? So we can give some kind of guidance, to parents.
Well, and you're bringing up an interesting idea that if we're talking about screen time as a unified whole, I get that in my car if I'm on a long drive.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And why are screens qualitatively different?
Screens are tools. They can be tools for entertainment. They can be tools for learning. They can be tools for connection. They can be tools for stress relief and mood management. Games can be all of those, coincidentally. So I really like to tell parents or anyone who's asking about screen time is like, what is the function of what they're doing? Are they talking to their cousins for an hour on FaceTime? Is that really an hour of screen time? Or are you going to say that they can't play the Switch for another 2 hours if they want to play the Switch with Mario Party with their sibling? My children play Mario Party all the time. Those games are, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Trevor?
I will say this. I was lucky to grow up in a home with a bunch of people who didn't know they had ADHD, so no one was able to keep track of how much time I did spend on screens. But yeah, I do know folks who, when they their kids get a video game device or anything like that, they've come to me and been like, how do I turn on the parental controls for this stuff? And I will say the parental controls on Nintendo Switch are just wild. The fact that it's just like, no, you get 20 minutes and it's shut off. Like, it just won't work. Like, that is wild to me that it even goes that low. Like, I mean, like maybe if you're grounded or something, but like still, that is just wild. And yeah, for me personally, and I'm going to preface this, I do not have kids. I am just an uncle to a lot of children. I genuinely don't understand it. I'm like, just let them do whatever they're gonna do. Like, just let them have fun.
I mean, and again, it depends. So like my kids, they can play multiple hours of video games on the weekend. That bothers me 0%. I don't like the mindless YouTube scrolling. I find that to be qualitatively different.
Yeah.
They like to watch YouTube videos to get inspiration for Minecraft. That's okay. But
Yeah.
when I see you're just like mindlessly scrolling and watching, like, no, like that's
I don't even
not
like that for myself.
no, and they're like kind of zoning out, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's like mix it up and let's do something else, or let's do something together, or that. So I mean, it is not the same.
Well, in this case, you're talking about purposeful activity
Correct.
versus mindless boredom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, like, I don't even know if like it's mindless boredom for me, because like for me with it, like, they are quick little videos that give you that one little hit of dopamine, and like I'm just ADHD scrolling on it and I will notice, I'm like, okay, I'm getting into the bad parts of ADHD where I'm just getting locked down in the spot because I'm just getting that little bit of dopamine here and there, and that's when I'll try to stop that.
Me and coffee Instagram.
Hey, Morgan makes good coffee.
Morgan does make good coffee.
I knew you'd get it.
I met them last year.
Anywho,
we'll talk later.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so are you saying that there isn't, because you were talking about like there isn't really a set amount of time, like when people say how much time is there?
Yeah.
Do you feel that besides that like mindless scrolling sort of thing, like that there should be a limit on it, or is it just kind of like, you have to kind of feel this stuff out and be like, this probably isn't great for you, but like, yeah, go ahead and play your games, like whatever.
Yeah, I think that, so it's what I think is right for my kids is different for everybody else's kids. I want to preface it with that. Like, if it's about children and parents, your children better than I do, certainly. But for me, it's just literally about balance.
Yeah.
The weekend they play more, during the week they play less. During the week they play less because at 6 o'clock they got to get off so they can have a bath and do their thing and do something else. Not because I'm like, oh, you hit your limit, but it's like you got other stuff to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is a magic number. I think it is about understanding the purpose of it and like, what is it? Is it entertainment? Is it learning? Is it inspiration? Is it playing together? Is it because they had a long day of exams at school and really they could just kind of want to explore, Breath of the Wild, which I'm doing right now. I'm behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that's wild for me is like, I genuinely don't feel like I would have this kind of like personality that I have now if it weren't for playing games online, and I just did that a ridiculous amount. Like, I used to play Halo 2 online, and that game, being social with people in that way, let me be social and try out different like who I wanted to be, because I couldn't do that at school. Because like I'd see, if I tried out being like overly wacky or something, I'm gonna see that kid in my next class. Like they're gonna know. But, so
they're social training grounds or social learning grounds, and
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much value in that, and identity formation and social learning in online games. That's what I'm saying. Like, is your child anxious or shy? Do they feel more of who they are when they're online with their online friends? Great, then that is a social value. It is not less socially valuable than playing basketball across the street to them. Maybe to you, but you're not understanding the purpose of that tool.
But Dr. Cowart.
Yes, Dr.
Dr. Cowart, I just believe that if we can't look people in the eyes as we speak to them and see their faces, we're just not getting the sort of connection that's important for the development of children. Ignore the fact that I'm autistic and I barely make eye contact. I still believe this.
Here's the thing. There are a lot of skills in this world. Number one. For instance, I would say that engaging online teaches you more valuable 21st century skills like multi-threading, being able to have multiple conversations about different topics in simultaneous real time. You will not learn that in a traditional conversation in which you are maintaining exquisite eye contact. You have exquisite eye contact, Audrey. Not right this moment. But yeah, I mean, there's different social skills. You're learning different things online than offline. And here's the other thing. As I said earlier, when you were asking, Trevor, it's about balance. No one under 18 is spending exclusively all of their time interacting, communicating through a screen. Very unlikely that that's the case. They have teachers, they have parents, they have neighbors, they have the pizza delivery. I don't want to say pizza, that's a stereotype. They have the Amazon man, whoever's coming. So I'm not worried at all about the degradation of a
So it's almost like it's a different skill set where you learn different things, and like different experiences bring different nuances that we need to consider.
and like they might all be valuable.
Oh my God.
That's a hard one. I
Oh
know.
my God. Wait a minute. Whoa. So it depends.
Oh,
oh,
we got to it.
In the end.
Well, oh no, you're about to go to break, aren't you?
No. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I totally was like, yeah, no, we're gonna do that. That's one of the things that just as a clinician I find gets lost with a lot of folks. That you brought this up earlier, that people are, to borrow a term from social psychology, cognitive misers.
Yeah.
Even those of us who enjoy thinking take shortcuts, and we get there as efficient way as we can. But this idea that it depends and there are no easy answers, and it seems more intimidating that way. It seems scarier, more anxiety provoking.
Well, and you also have to think that like screens can be anxiety provoking if you don't have a familiarity with them. And it's not just, I used to always think like, what's my parents' generation? And it's really not. Like I have peers that have just the same kind of fears and panic around screens as people of older generation. So it's hard. Humans want to be cognitive misers. We want to be lazy thinkers. That there's like 1,000, cognitive fallacies that we make every day because
biases, heuristics,
biases, that we want to kind of skip over the nuance and go right to like that's it. But when it
helps
comes
us
to
make
screens,
sense of the world, it gives the world a sense of predictability when it's
doing yourself
chaos.
a disservice. When you think of screens that way, you're doing yourself and those around you an incredible disservice. So I think about that.
It's also there's just so many screens today too.
That's the thing.
I've been out of high school for an amount of years, and I'll see like a news report about like high schools and stuff like that, and like people, they got laptops and they got like big screens up that they're doing lessons on and everything. It's wild.
I had Laserdisc. All right. Anyone remember Laserdisc?
I watched Jurassic Park on Laserdisc in my chemistry class.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
They were the shiny records.
They were so yeah, like I said, my daughter's in grade 2. They have Chromebooks. Like it's pretty incredible.
I don't know. I'm thinking about all the messages I got as a kid reading Nintendo Power and just being super into all that stuff. Versus the messages so many of my friends got, and now I have an interesting career.
Yeah. And there's a lot, when I talk to parents, which is relatively often actually, it is a genuine curiosity and a genuine fear. And it's because the moral panic keeps coming through a lot in popular media. We see it in the way that screens and games are portrayed in pop culture and in television and film. We also see it in news. That's why I said I went on a Twitter tirade less than a week ago about another news story that made me want to shake my fist at the cloud. So it's hard to cut through when you're constantly, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, inundated with messages that you should be afraid of these things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're ruining your eyes.
You're ruining your eyes.
You are ruining your eyes. Look, I'm going to take one caveat. We are actually all ruining our eyes. Just so you know, I talked to a neuro-ophthalmologist not that long ago, and it's not screens are ruining your eyes, but it's like screens close to your face are making us as a society nearsighted, which I found fascinating. And I don't know, is it really ruining? We'll all need glasses.
Well, but
so I'm fine with it.
You're already in that way. You're talking about things in a much more nuanced fashion instead of going in with this idea of, will someone please think of that? I really need to have some pearls around here so I can clutch them in those moments. Kind of like the tiaras. I just need them within easy reach.
Yes.
But instead of, will somebody think of the children, these drugs are bad, all drugs are bad, even apparently the ones I take for my health because they're technically drugs. These sweeping ideas, now you're looking at it with a more nuanced fashion of okay, what actually are the impacts? What are the benefits? What are the impacts? How can we maximize the benefits?
Yeah, exactly. Can I just say, someone suggested a pearl bow tie?
I was just about to put that in too.
That.
I'll talk to my bow tie guy.
I think you and I, Trevor, were both like,
we both thought that. We're like, we have to say this. Thank you, Dharma Skull.
And I know who that is too. We'll talk later.
Excellent suggestion.
Oh boy. Okay, so I do think that because we want to have some time, we did just get some good questions and that we're gonna spend the last 10 minutes talking about. But yeah, resources and like how do we do it and whatnot. Where do you want to start with that?
Well, can I make one suggestion for that before we go into that? Yeah. Because this is something that I've heard Dr. Cowart talk about many times, and it is such a useful metaphor for how to pack and think about those resources. Dr. Cowart, what is the digital diet?
If you think about the food pyramid, but think about it for digital consumption. So you have like the meats and the grains, or the meat, the protein, that'd be like educational purposes, maybe. Mm-hmm. Then you have like the carbohydrates, so maybe that's like binging the new season of Black Mirror. And then, which is what I'm doing. Actually, I'm not binging it. I can't binge it.
No, in your case, that's legit research.
It is actually. I told my husband, I was like, we have to watch it for my job. Like, I have to watch it.
Because you're writing a book about it, which shows the interesting nuances of this. What would have been candy in your digital diet is now research.
It is now the carbohydrates, which is like the best part. As far as I'm concerned. And then the fats at the top, although, I would put, games as one of the bigger food groups, because the fats are the things that I would consider really, I have a friend who calls them mental laxatives, which is like the blind scrolling, or like the TV that you just have on in the background, but you're not really paying attention to it, or like those kinds of uses. But the point is, it highlights that there's different functions, and what you're doing is different in the pyramid. So if you only have 2 hours a day, it's very different if it's 2 hours of the fats of the pyramid versus 2 hours of like the meat and potatoes of the pyramid.
The meat and potatoes.
So I'm curious, what's digital junk food for both of you?
Oh God.
Digital junk food. I have so little time to consume anything.
I mean, it's probably social media for me, where like I just find myself. Like I'll suddenly find myself scrolling Twitter. I'm like, I remember when I started doing this.
I'm real heavy into like thrifting TikTok algorithm, like the people who go to thrift stores and find cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. No,
okay, you and the vintage clothes.
What about you, Dr. Beam? What's your candy?
What's your candy?
It's tough because so much of what my digital candy is would be for things that are my hobbies. So like coffee Instagram or cooking Instagram. But at the same time, I'm just like, I'm making notes. I'm like, I'm gonna make that later.
You're getting ideas for things and whatnot. Like I'm literally just. There's times where I'm like, I don't even know if I read that tweet. I just scroll. I just keep scrolling. Like I'm just looking at stuff, like when I do Instagram videos and stuff. It's so bad that like I will be scrolling Instagram video. My wife and I send them back and forth to each other. And it's to the point that like I have to do that, because if I scroll even 2 videos, I won't even remember what that one I wanted to send her was. It's so quick, instant stuff that ADHD is just like, ha, and then throws it away.
Dennis and Mac.
Dennis and Mac. Do I know that one? I don't know if I know that one. My brain's mush right now. Sorry. But yeah, no, it's like I don't know if that, like if you think that's junk food for you, like I get it, but at the same time, I see it as like you're getting ideas for stuff, like you're wanting to try something out.
Yeah. I don't much like Dr. Cowart, I don't have a ton of time. So when I'm trying to turn my brain off because I'm just overloaded, I'm just trying to turn my brain off lately, Vampire Survivors.
Oh, good choice.
It's rhythmic. There's patterns. There's a level up. There's a level up options. There's counting things. Autism Brain is salivating right
Dude,
now.
I love that game so much that when I see ads for like the knockoff of it, I get mad at it. I'm just like, you're not as good. Okay, interesting. So resources and stuff. What do you want to touch on for that?
I mean, TakeThis.org has a lot of free resources.
I hear they're pretty good.
They're pretty good. I'm just saying. I published a new book. It's freely available on the internet. It's called Digital Playgrounds. I published it with Amanda Farrow. She was the first author. She's an amazing writer and games journalist, and has a lot of. She's a parent. She has a lot of children. And we wrote a book called Digital Playgrounds, and it's a series from ETC Press. The first one is out, and the second one is coming out soon, which is full of information about the kind of stuff we talked about here, about moral panic and thinking about a digital diet and thinking about the uses and effects. Of games. I'll try to find a link. I wasn't prepared.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I hear you've written a couple of books out there for those who are more academically minded.
Academically minded. I have a few books. I have a Parent's Guide to Video Games, which is made for parents specifically, and I also have the Video Game Debate 1 and 2, which is the more academic version, which I actually really love this book for anyone who wants to get into the scholarly research, because it's written by experts of each particular field, and it's a single chapter that overviews everything we know. So there's one on aggression and violence, there's one on social skills, there's one on games and learning, and you can really just kind of dive into like, oh, this is everything we know from the last 40 years, in like 20 pages or less. There they are. Those are my babies. Yeah, Video and Debate 1 and 2. Those are great.
Those are absolutely wonderful.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you're more academically minded, by all means dive into those. They're really good.
Thanks. That's actually why Dr. B was a fanboy the first time I met him.
Yep.
Because he knew me from that book.
Yep, I knew Dr. Cohort's work. Yeah, I was one of the weird geeks in my grad school class who was into video games, despite.
You say weird. I say awesome. My work is not in a vacuum. Somebody read it. That's great.
Well, there was that time I actually did teach a workshop in grad school with a lightsaber I built as a pointer, and
oh my God, Dr. B. This is so tangential, but there we go.
Yes.
My 5-year-old was at a birthday party this weekend, and a Jedi trainer showed up to teach them how to do lightsabers. And my back was to him, so I didn't see him. And the guy was like, he's all in his outfit, and he was like, "Who's ready for lightsaber training?" And I swear to God, I was like, lightsaber training. I was so excited.
Oh man,
did you just pull it out from your cloak?
What'd you say?
And all the other parents were like, "What?" And the guy was like, "I can tell the Force is strong with you." Oh my God,
that's incredible.
Oh, it was awesome and also embarrassing, but it was fun. I embraced my love.
Oh
my God, that's
so good. I just want to talk about that now, but we got some questions.
I did see some questions. Yeah.
We got a few of them. This is from Delshift B. Question: does Khan Academy (parentheses) and other fully educational sites count towards the 2-hour screen time limit?
Up to you. I love Khan Academy. Also, might I suggest Endless Learning Academy, which is the amount of times I suggest it, I really should be paid by them. But it is like my favorite app I've ever had found for kids. I mean, for me, I legit don't time ever what my kids are doing. If they're engaged and they're doing something that's educational, why on earth would you be like, no, go sit on the back porch? Like, why would you not encourage it?
Dr. Cohort, that's because it involves screens, and screens take away from our ability to connect with other people. This is what I believe.
I just want to see how long we can get him to do this pose.
I can do this. I can commit to the bit. Okay. And what I can, and I'm going to get slightly more nasal as I start talking about this.
Would you feel the same if they were sitting with a book learning the same things from a book?
Yeah.
If the answer is
well, you know that I believe books are the source of such learning, and they can be the gateway into whole worlds. And because we're actively using our imagination with books, they're better, you see, as opposed to the sort of passive enjoyment we get from screens.
It's nice to meet you.
May this be the last time we meet. Yeah. I mean, that's always my thing too. Whenever they bring up books or something like that, is I'm like, you do realize like the same thing was said about books and newspapers. Like newspapers is my favorite one. Is like newspapers are making it so no one talks to each other anymore. It like literally you can go back and look at articles, which is hilarious that they were articles. That we're talking about that, and they sound exactly like the like cell phones now. Like people are saying the exact same things minus Tinder. Let's see. We're gonna go to Reaver01's question. They say, any idea how we can help folks understand the difference in how screen time is used?
What do you think, B? I would love to hear. I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious.
Say that question again. I was getting props. They challenged me in the chat, so I was like, yes. And I just
listen.
I
got
have
props
opinions.
all around. I got
oh my god,
opinions on this.
Nice.
But no, what was the question again?
How can you get people to understand the nuance of screen time?
I like to think, okay, so we've talked about this before. I like to think about what's called self-determination theory. And this is something that our colleague and friend, Dr. Kelly Dunlap, brings into a lot of her trainings. And so credit where it's due. Dr. Dunlap's a big proponent of this. And it basically categorizes a lot of our activities that we engage in by choice into 3 different needs. And that's either a need to connect, a need to have control, or a need to feel a sense of competence or mastery over things. And I think about purposeful engagement in those things. Like if I'm going and binging Wondrium because I'm really fascinated in learning about a concept, or I'm going to like master classes because I found out Steve Martin is teaching a comedy writing class on there because he was. That's obviously a very different purpose than me playing Mario Party or Worms Armageddon with friends.
Why would you play Mario Party with friends? We've been over this.
You don't play Mario Party.
That's how I get rid of friends.
Yeah, you play Mario Party with future enemies.
Yes.
I've
That's
gotten
legitimately
better.
true. Yeah, I don't
I'm
believe
so much
you.
better now. I don't do that anymore.
But you're right. It's about games as tools, which is always kind of the reframing I try to give. It's a tool.
Right.
What tools it's serving.
Not all Scream Time and Hammer Time. Hammer Time?
Hammer Time.
Oh, no. Hasn't been Hammer Time for about 30 years, but thinking about what's the purpose of this. And we've been talking about this in terms of like kids, but I think about it very frequently in terms of myself.
Yeah.
Like I know how engaged I can get in single player RPGs. So because I got so much to do, I deliberately don't play single player RPGs unless I know I got time.
Yeah.
That's me looking in the fridge and about to eat a whole gallon of ice cream. And I don't care what I say.
Listen,
I'm going to do
because
it.
I destroyed half an entire pizza while playing Diablo 4 this weekend doesn't mean
right.
anything, okay?
It's like we know we learn over time what is our quote, our digital junk food, and the stuff like we can't keep that in the house because
yeah. True.
And so I do a lot of things like environmental modifications. The same thing I would with food. If I want to eat healthy food, I just keep the healthy food in the house.
Yeah.
If I want a soda, I go to the store and I buy a single one.
Yeah.
So there's no temptation for me because ADHD and impulse control. And so that's the way I think about it in terms of both function and availability, to get back to the question.
Yeah.
And I want to maximize the availability of the stuff that's healthy for me. And I know me.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing for me is just telling me, like, listen, screens aren't going to decrease. Odds are we're just going to get more screens. So
I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 if you count all the buttons of my Steam Deck.
I was just thinking the same thing for mine. Yeah, like I've got 2 monitors here, my phone, a Steam Deck, and a Zelda thing.
Oh,
like
21.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've got the feedback on the camera.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of screens. Let's see. Let's wrap this one up with Joker Lorian. I'm gonna go with that. Question: do you have any tips on breaking away from screen time for physical breaks? Reminder apps / devices don't seem to have the ability to break the loop. Between work, gaming, studying, I easily find myself behind a keyboard for 10 hours a day, and even look up yoga to combat the muscle spasms from hunching over the keyboard for so long.
Dr. B.
I bring in accountability buddies personally. Because a lot of my friends also autistic and ADHD, so they understand what it's like to just like tunnel vision and hyper focus in a way that's hard to control. And I try and bring in people who will be obnoxious about it in the same way I will be obnoxious to them, because we have a trusting relationship that is supportive, that I know they are doing exactly what I asked them to help me do, and that's take regular breaks when my mind is spinning on the same thing. And so that's bringing in other people. If the reminders aren't working for me, that's my strategy.
I mean, I don't know about breaking away during the day, which is very important. But like for me, I know that I have a bit of I don't know if compulsion is the right word, but I want to check my phone all the time, right? I feel like a lot of us have that. Oh, is there a notification? Like, let me know. So in the morning now, I leave my phone upstairs when I come downstairs. I have to like physically distance myself from it, and then I do find myself like, where is it? I'm like, oh right, it's upstairs, because it's just a habit. So at least I spend like the first hour, however long it takes me to get my kids to school, having that bit of a break.
Well, and that's going back to the previous question. That's why I think about these things in terms of both availability and purpose. Like if I know I'm using my phone for a specific reason, then I want to have it close by. But if it's just habitual, just like I don't know what to do, I'm bored, so I'm scrolling, that's a different matter.
Yeah, for sure. That's the junk food.
Yeah. I commend one of my friends so much, because he does seem to do pretty well with this, because like, we have a weekly D&D game, but we play on Discord, so we're still on a screen. There have been weeks where he's like, hey guys, work has been a lot this week, and I've had to be at my desk in front of the screen more than usual. I'm not gonna be there this week because I just need a break from the screen. I'm like, that's a totally fair and legit reason. And I wish I had that kind of self-control on things. I'm like, no, I'm gonna play D&D. But definitely that sort of thing of like considering how much you've done in the day or anything like that. That it's like, okay, well maybe, instead of continuing to scroll through TikTok, I'm gonna go read a book for a little bit or something like that. Just like noticing instead of letting it just become what you do regularly, and just kind of taking in how much time you're spending on it. If you feel like if you have that gut feeling, I think I've been spending too much time on it today, just go with the gut.
Well, it also sounds like, Trevor, you're talking about an awareness, a nuanced awareness of what is screen time as a uniform concept versus visual stimulation. Like there are times where I've been working all day, and I've been looking at research on my left screen, or excuse me, my Asana tasks on my left screen, my research on my right screen, and my writing on the middle screen. And that is a lot of visual input. And I'm just like, you know what? I need to be away from visual input for a while.
Just go stare at a wall for a bit. Daydream.
I have done that quite literally. I have stared at a wall for, I think the longest period was about an hour and a half, just because I was done.
Yeah. Well, that is about our time for the episode. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. This was an absolute blast.
Me. Yeah, it was great.
Always so insightful to have you on the show. If people wanted to find you and the works that you talked about today, where could they do so?
Yes, I'm on Twitter till it's completely gone.
I do love that has been a quantifier for like everyone I've talked to on the show for like 6 months.
Oh, we're like the band on the Titanic, a lot of us.
You're so right. My handle is below Dr. Coward. You can also find links to all of my work or books or research or resources at my website, which is rkowert.com. And then, of course, takethis.org, where we have lots of yummy nibbles about screen time for you to consume.
Absolutely. Be sure, Chad, to go check out all of Dr. Cowart's stuff. It is fantastic. And definitely follow her on Twitter, because if you don't know a lot about The Witcher, you will.
You will.
You will very quickly.
If you're not a fan of Henry Cavill now, strap in.
That is can I have that as a clip? I'm gonna have to clip that.
That's just your pinned thing. It's like, do you want to know about this Twitter account?
That's it. Yeah. Yep, 100%.
Dr. P, what about you?
Oh, I'm around. You can find me on most socials at the Dr. B, TheeDoctor. B as in boy. But like Dr. Cowart mentioned, follow take this org on all the socials. We're really that's the important account to follow because we have so many cool free resources on there. We've got a couple more burnout videos for content creators at the editors right now, and I'm looking forward to getting those out there.
And again, that's not talking about that car game.
Yeah, no.
Different thing.
Yep. You can follow me on Twitter at the Treavor. There's an A hiding in there. I'm not even going to attempt to talk about the Twitch schedule this week for Isle Champions because we just have so much going on. Go check out our Twitter, our Reddit, and our Discord to find out what is going on. We're going to have some fun things going on. There's a new season dropping tomorrow, so a lot of big stuff. But that is going to do it for this week's episode. Once again, Dr. Cowart, thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to have you on again at some point to talk about more extremely insightful things. But until next week, take care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.